Hello, YouTube. Let's get back to Brihat Samhita study, online study. Now we're beginning chapter 6, which is the chapter on Mars. And Varahamihira is going to tell us about the retrogressions of Mars. That's the first thing he's going to discuss. The implication of the retrogression of Mars relative to nakshatras. So what he says you should do, hang on one second, let me compare this with another translation. There seems to be, on one version of the text, there has an extra verse at the beginning of this chapter. The version with the extra text says that Mars has 5 kinds of retrogrades. Now, Mars retrogression is not a popular topic like Mercury retrogression is, right? If this was about Mercury's retrogression, I could just publicize it and get a lot of people interested in it because they already are, right? But this is about Mars's retrogression. What's so special about Mars's retrogression? It actually is more interesting, Mars's retrogression. Mars's retrogression gives Mars a lot of its personality. Because there's something about the Mars retrogression, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something about it which made it extremely difficult to calculate for many centuries. And if I learned my sciences correctly, then it wasn't until Kepler, I think, that they got it down, or Copernicus maybe, that they got it down pat. It was difficult to get this down pat, and that's why Mars has this character of being independent and maverick and going on his own path. Maybe because he has a very wide retrogression or whatever, but retrogression of Mars is very interesting. And Varahamihira makes a point to look at it. He says there's 5 kinds. Ushna, Avamukha, Vyala, Lohana, and Nistrimana. So basically he's got 5 different kinds, and he's going to explain the 5 different kinds. So the first kind here, it depends on the nakshatra. So he says, look at the nakshatra. Oh, this is so interesting. Hang on a second. These 2 versions are very different. Oh, this is very interesting. Okay, they got it the same. So you look at the nakshatra that Mars was in the last time he conjoined the sun. Then the retrogression. So let's say you have a Mars retrogression begin. You dial back the time until you get to the previous conjunction of Mars with the sun. And you take a note of that nakshatra. If the retrogression starts a certain number of nakshatras from the conjunction with the sun, then it's going to be classified as a different type of retrogression. All right? So, for example, if this may be impossible, but let's say if Mars conjoins the sun in Kritika and then it goes retrograde in Rohini, then its retrogression began 1 nakshatra after its conjunction. If it conjoins the sun in Kritika and its retrogression begins in Mrigashirsha, then the retrogression has begun 2 nakshatras after. Okay, so the first type of Mars retrogression is when it begins 7, 8, or 9 nakshatras from the conjunction point. And this one is called Vaktra Mushana. And people that earn money from fire will suffer thereby. So it's not good for people that work with fuel and electricity, I would say. Fuel and electricity. If you have a Mars retrograde begin 7, 8, or 9 nakshatras from its conjunction with the sun. Then in the second shloka, he says, if the retrogression of Mars starts 10th, 11th, or 12th, then it's called asramuk. The different kinds of tastes will be vitiated. The different kinds of tastes. Juice will be injured. Rasa. Rasam is going to be injured. And the different kind of tastes will be vitiated, and diseases and drought will break out when he reappears after his next conjunction with the sun. Oh, so interesting. I wonder how they got all these things down to this. This is not obvious. So far, my commentary on most of Varahamihira's interpretive techniques is, well, these are very simple, obvious things. This looks like this shape, so therefore it affects this kind of thing. This one's pretty not like that. This one is saying, if you have Mars conjoined with the sun, and then 10 nakshatras later, 11 nakshatras or 12 nakshatras later, it goes retrograde. Then wait for the next time that Mars conjoins the sun. After he gets out of that conjunction, there's going to be an outbreak of ill health, which is going to affect the mouth. It's going to be the kind of diseases that get rid of your smell and taste and stuff like that. So like a nose, throat type thing. Infection. Interesting prediction. Now, some of you guys who have some time on your hands, please do some research. Look at the most recent retrogression of Mars. How many nakshatras was it? Try to do this technique. How far was it? How many nakshatras was it from its previous conjunction with the sun? And how does that match up with what Varahamihira says here? So now he's going to talk about the next type. So he said if there's 7, 8, and 9, if the retrogression begins 7, 8, or 9 nakshatras from the sun's conjunction, then it's not good for people that work with Mars energy, like fuels and fires and electricities. If it's 10, 11, or 12, then it causes disease, but not during the retrogression later, when it gets back to the sun. If it's 13 or 14, then it happens again after, I think that means Mars's next conjunction. Yeah, when he goes into the next conjunction, the effect will happen, which you get like 13 or 14, you'll get Mars type of animals have problems with you. Like you can get bit by a snake, or you have to deal with a wild animal. Sharp teeth animals will affect you. But he says, however, there's general prosperity. So it's pretty much a good thing, except you just have dangers from wild animals. Then the next type of Mars retrogression is if Mars does retrogression in 15th or 16th. So it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15, 16. 15, 16, Tirana. During this period, people will suffer from facial diseases, and there will be general panic. There will, however, be prosperity, which means it's not going to be that bad, but it's just going to be panic. Or you can interpret this to mean that the earth will be okay. The agriculture and so forth will be okay. But people get some problems. They get afraid of things, and it shows on their face. They may have skin diseases in the face. Then the next one, the fifth sloka, which is the sixth sloka in the other one, if it's 17 or 18, so this will be the fifth type. First type was 7th, 8th, 9th. Second type was 10, 11, 12. Third type was 13, 14. Fourth type was 15, 16 nakshatras away. And now the fifth type is 17 or 18 nakshatras away. This is called Asimushala. When Mars begins his direct motion after this, there will be trouble from the bands of robbers, droughts, and risk of weapons. So this is when Mars ends the retrograde, you get trouble from dacoits, robbers, those kind of people. Risk from weapons maybe means war, violence. Now he's going to change. So he's introduced that first topic that there's 5 different kinds of retrogression, and now he's going to go to a different topic, but it's still related to how Mars's retrogression relates with its previous solar conjunction. If Mars should, this is the 6th, let's say 6th, could be 7th in another version, statement in this chapter. If Mars should emerge from the Sun in Purva Palguni or Uttara Palguni and begin his retrogression in Uttarashada and disappear in Rohini, he will afflict the 3 worlds with miseries. So this is a particularly difficult one. So let's just count this one and see how this works. Let me grab a little chart. Well, not this one. One second. I get a chart on the screen. Okay, let's see if I can even share it. Hang on a second. So you guys can see this. I'm going to add a window. And which one is it going to be? Here, we pick it from here. Doesn't seem to be available. All right, we'll skip that part. Hang on. Google Chrome. One second. Let's see if we can get this to work. Then you can see some graphic on the screen. Okay, so I think maybe we'll have to wait till next time, or let's see. This suddenly worked, huh? What? It's so big. Let's make it fit. Now, it's kind of a little bit still too gigantic. All right. It's still too big. Okay, here you can kind of sort of see me and this wheel at the same time. So let's take a look at this thing. So he's saying, what's he saying? Let's review what he said. If Mars should emerge from the Sun in Purva Palguni or Uttara Palguni, and then begin his retrograde motion in Uttarashada, and then disappear in Rohini. Let's just look at that on this wheel. Actually, you don't need to see me. You need to see this wheel a little bit bigger. So, Uttara Palguni or Purva Palguni. Here they are, right? Purva and Uttara Palguni. So he's saying if this is where Mars has conjoined the Sun. Now it's where Mars actually emerges from the conjunction with the Sun. So it's after Mars leaves conjunction from the Sun. That's where he appears. If that happens in Purva Palguni or Uttara Palguni, and then the retrogression begins in Uttarashada. So let's count. Let's say if it's Purva Palguni, 1, Hastas 2, Chitras 3, Swati 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Mula 9. So if it's 7 Anuradha, Jeshta or Mula, that would be the first type. Then Purvashada 10 and Uttarashada 11. Let's just double check. I don't know if you should count the one that you're starting from. You usually do, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to Purvashada, 11 to Uttarashada. So this is going to be the same effect, right? He says it can begin from Purva Palguni or Uttara Palguni. So it's going to have to be 7, 8, 9. It's 10, 11, 12. It's going to have to fit in the same category. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It could be 11 or 10. 10, 11, 12. That's okay. And from Uttara Palguni, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we narrowed this down that you must count the starting nakshatra. There's 1. So it's nice that he give us a specific example so we can work this out. So you must count the starting nakshatra. So let's say if Mars emerges from conjunction with the Sun in Purva Palguni, then begins to go retrograde over here in Uttarashada, that's going to be the second type of retrogression, which is where he said you're going to get ear, nose, and throat problems after the Sun disappears again. So then the disappearance is going to have to happen when Mars is going to conjoin the Sun again. So he's saying it's going to happen around here in Rohini. If this is the case, then it's a particularly bad case too. If Mars should emerge from the Sun in Purva Palguni or Uttara Palguni, begin his retrograde motion in Uttarashada and disappear in Rohini, it's going to be terrible for everybody. Let's see what the next one is. If the emergence of Mars from the Sun's conjunction be in the asterism of Shravana and begins his retrograde motion in Pusha, kings will suffer. People belonging to the countries denoted by the asterisms through which Mars reappears will meet with destruction. So let's look at this. If Mars emerges from the Sun in Shravana and begins to retrograde in Pusha, so Shravana is right here. So this is, let's say, Mars conjoins the Sun here in Shravana, and then it goes to retrogression here in Pusha. So that's something like 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 14 nakshatras. That was the last... No, that was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That was the third type. Which is the sharp teeth animals type. But if it happens in this particular constellation, if it happens in Shravana with the retrogression in Pusha, then it's a particular one. It's a specific one that afflicts the kings of the country denoted by, apparently, I don't see how it could be. How it could not be Shravana, since he said it started from there. Okay, so there we've looked at some examples. So let me turn this off so you can see me again. Oops. There you go. Alrighty. Let's see what else he has to say here. He's probably going to give a longer list of specific ones. If Mars passes through the middle of the asterism Magha and retrogrades from there alone, the Punya king will meet with his end. If Mars, after cutting the asterism Magha, should cut Vishaka, then there will be famine in the country. If he should cut the star Rohini, there will be terrible mortality. Now, so what does it mean cutting? If the retrogression happens in that particular nakshatra, irrespective, these are special ones now. The first 5 things he gave were general cases. Probably every Mars retrogression will fit into one of those 5. Now there's these other special things that he's mentioning. If the retrogression happens in Magha, you get a problem. And then if it's Vishaka, you get a different kind of problem. If it's Rohini, a different kind of problem. I think with Magha, you get kings causing wars. With Vishaka, you get no rains, and therefore no harvest. And with Rohini, you get bad health. People die. If Mars passes through the southern side of Rohini, now this is concerning the declination relative to the star. When Mars passes south of Rohini, kings will suffer, princes will fall, and there will be little rain. Okay? If he appears to be surrounded by smoke or flame, people living in Padayatra region will be destroyed. And those are the peripheral countries to India. So the declination of Mars relative to Yogatars is also important. If Mars should transit Rohini, Shravana, Mula, Uttara Palguni, Uttara Shada, Uttara Bhadrapada, or Jeshta, he will cause problems to rain. So what he's saying here is when Mars is in Rohini, Shravana, Mula, Uttara Palguni, Uttara Shada, Uttara Bhadrapada, or Jeshta, it's not good for the rains. If Mars should emerge from the Sun's conjunction when he's passing the asterisms Shravana, Magha, Punarvasu, Hasta, Mula, Purva Bhadrapada, Ashwini, Vishaka, and Rohini, he will prove auspicious, and the evil effects mentioned before will not happen. So generally speaking, a Mars retrogression in one of these nakshatras, which was Magha, Vishaka, or Rohini, is bad news. But if it's happening after Mars emerged from Sun conjunction in this other list of nakshatras, it's okay. The bad stuff doesn't happen. Same thing with this transit south of the Rohini Yogatars, not great. But if it's Mars came out of the Sun in this particular nakshatra list, that's also nullified. And finally, while Mars is in these particular nakshatras, Rohini, Shravana, etc., it prevents rain, but not if Mars came out from its conjunction with the Sun in this particular list of nakshatras. Let's see what else he's got here. Let's just look ahead. Oh, we can almost finish the Mars chapter. When Mars with a broad and clear form and deep red like King Sukha and Ashok flowers with pure and bright rays, with a brightness like that of a red-hot molten copper, should pass in the northern side of the asterism he's in, he will bring prosperity to the kings and peace and contentment to his subjects. So in general, it looks like it's good to get Mars northern declinations and nice and clear and bright and red. Then he does good things. He basically makes the kings and rulers and the, enforcement systems and military systems work well and not cause problems to people, actually bring good to the society. But when you get Mars in southern declinations and get obscured or smoky or look weird, then it tends to do things not as good. And then you get problems to those people and from those people. All right. Guess what's next? Next chapter. That's the chapter of Mars, and guess what's next? The Mercury's chapter is next. He's not going in any particular order. Probably he's going in the order of that he's interested in things. Unless there's some order that escapes me. Because he began the book by just the introduction, and then he talked about the astrologer, the qualities of the astrologer. Then he got right into the sun and how the sun looks. And then he got into the moon and how the moon looks, and different predictions based on that. And then he got into Rahu and how eclipses work and what they look like, how to interpret them. Then he got into Mars and talked all about the retrogression of Mars, and then threw in a little bit about the northern southern declination. And it's a very interesting system that the retrogression is relative to the solar conjunction. That's how you interpret the effect of the retrogression. That's the basis. So the next chapter will be Mercury, and we're also going to hear some stuff about the retrogressions of Mercury. Okay, stay tuned. I'm going to switch streams now for Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you for joining me. I just want to say I forgot to bring my glasses, so I can't even read your chat right now. So sorry about that.